In an effort to hyper-define or hyper-survey the budget watch space, we're going to feature another, even more specific roundup of our favorite highly affordable timepieces, with current MSRPs that fall between $100 and $150. As you'll see by the end of our curated list, you can't argue that there isn't any real value offered at this price point, and with this guide, we'll show you just how insanely affordable an extremely solid watch can still be, inflationary pressures aside. So let's go ahead and jump right in with our first watch from G-Shock. Even in a hyperinflated market, G-Shock has definitively answered the question, can you actually get a decent watch anymore for under $150? Yes, 100% yes, and there aren't just a few, but many excellent, hyper-tough choices from the Casio subsidiary you can currently procure for a Benjamin and some change or less. And one of our favorites among many is the tan G-Shock GA700-UC5A, which offers a military-inspired case color and everything hyper-utilitarian about the chunky GA700 line. Plus, it has one of the coolest running seconds displays we've ever seen on an analog-digital hybrid. The GA700 family dates back circa 2016, and even before then, G-Shock's penchant for durability was a popular quality among members of the military and law enforcement. But the GA700s even further increased the toughness of G-Shocks that predate this family. This GA700, the UC-5A, has quite the presence at 53.4mm in diameter, a 57.5mm lug-to-lug, and a whopping 18.4mm thickness. But even with those dimensions, it only clocks in at 2.4 ounces on the wrist. With all the time-tested slew of G-Shock functions included, it's quite clear why this is so popular with the target demographic. Plus, the newer colorways like our tan version, an OD green version, and a dark gray version only sweeten the appeal. The calling card of the GA700 is the 5-button design with the 5th front-facing button conveniently controlling the illuminator LED tucked away just left of the 6. Below the chiseled resin bezel elements and the mineral crystal, the dial houses 3 digital screens and a pair of analog hands that are synced and operate simultaneously. Like we mentioned, one of our favorite elements is tucked away in the upper right, this unique running seconds that counts down 10-second increments with these 6 vertically oriented bars. Obviously, this quirky charm is nothing new to G-Shock, but touches like these are always fun to see. And feature set is the same bundle you've come to know from G-Shock. World time, alarms, stopwatch, a timer, 12 and 24-hour time, etc, etc. And supplying the power is a quartz movement with an estimated battery life of 5 years on a small CR 2016 coin cell. A wide 2-pin strap and a black 2-pin buckle and a matching black strap loop round off the GA700's most notable features. Japan's early adoption of quartz calibers fueled the quartz crisis of the 70s, but all these decades later, these calibers have kept prices low compared to their more mechanically leaning Swiss contemporaries. That being said, it doesn't mean every budget-oriented Japanese watchmaker solely offers quartz-powered watches. Seiko makes the argument to this day that an excellent automatic watch never has to drain your account, and the expansive Seiko 5 line has proved that for many, many decades despite external inflationary pressures. Our next pick is the SNKL45, a still sub-$150 Seiko 5 with a very handsome, classic presentation and an excellent contender as a go-anywhere, do-anything timepiece. The very first Seiko 5 was the Sportmatic 5, released for sale in 1963, and anecdotally, they actually just reissued this watch under reference SRPK17 as a carbon copy of the original Sportmatic if you're interested in acquiring a bit of important horological history. But that one will run you a couple $100s more. We digress. The Seiko 5 line exploded in popularity, and there's a solid argument to be made that it's been Seiko's most successful family to date, with most offered up at very, very attainable price points. Vintage Seiko 5s, however, might cost you anywhere from a few $100s to well over $1,000 and more. References like 6139s, 6138s, some of the most popular Seiko 5 grails out there. We digress again. We have a hunch that the SNK5s will be considered neo-vintage not all that long from now, as Seiko seems to be slowly phasing them out, less and less offered directly from the watchmaker themselves. But you can still find them on marketplaces like Amazon and on the secondary market for extremely attainable prices. The SNKL45 specifically has very attractive styling with a full stainless steel case, measuring 38mm in diameter with a stout 42mm lug-to-lug and an overall thickness of about 12mm even. It has great proportions for just about every wrist size with that lug-to-lug measurement, keeping it nice and compact. Under Hardlex, another Seiko creation of the 60s, is a simple, clean, glossy black dial with metallic markers, a metallic framed Dauphine handset with thin strips of lume, an unframed day date at the 3, and a bold red accent courtesy of the seconds hand. The 7S26 caliber is at the heart, a mid-90s creation which further emphasizes that neo-vintage classification will stand by for these fives. At this price point, we love Seiko's use of these see-through casebacks, which are actually not all that common with budget fives, oddly enough. The 7S26 isn't necessarily the most beautiful, but we're not at all mad about this view. Alright, yes, the bracelet isn't hyper premium, but it does offer a clasp with plenty of micro adjustments, which is a definite plus. And Seiko 5s are strap monsters, so if you want to swap it out, this case will look absolutely fantastic with a myriad of different strap types. Our next budget pick comes by way of another classic G-Shock K-shape, the 2100 series, that's received a revamped approach by swapping the traditional resin bracelet for a strap made of hard-wearing Cordura and reshaping the approach of the N-Link and lugs. The traditional GA2100 that everyone's come to know and love is currently priced right around $100 even, and this new version only retails for about $20 more directly from G-Shock themselves. We love the new take as it presents this now classic G-Shock shape in a form factor that's ever so slightly more fashion forward than the already stylish original 2100 1A1. That is essentially where the changes stopped. You're still getting everything you love about the original Casio, as it's nicknamed, the same 45.4mm diameter, the 48.5mm lug-to-lug, the 11.8mm thickness, the same K-shape, the same dial design, the same packed feature set, the same shock resistance and carbon core guard structure. You even get the same quartz caliber powered off 2 coin cells that provide up to 3 years of life. This G-Shock is part of a trio of Cordura strap G-Shocks, the other two an updated DW5600 and an updated GA700. So if you were a fan of the Cordura integration and sleek metallic strap loops and buckle hardware, but wished they were integrated with another G-Shock silhouette, G-Shock is way ahead of you. Field watches are all-around great watches if you want to stretch your dollar and have a great daily wear, highly utilitarian wrist companion. They ooze traditional, rugged, military-influenced ethos and usually offer up solid specifications all around. Between $100 and $150, your options are limited, but Bertucci, in our opinion, makes some of the best. Our next affordable watch pick is a special edition DX3 to commemorate the 10-year anniversary of Bertucci's DX3 field watch, first released in 2012. Not to be confused with Bertucci's first ever field watch, the A2T, released in 2004. Up until 2014, Bertucci was a leading supplier of titanium field watches like the previously mentioned A2T and the subsequent A4T. But 2012 saw the DX3 introduce a fiber-reinforced polycarbonate for the main case that makes the DX3s extremely lightweight and extremely durable. On the wrist, the DX3 measures 40mm in diameter with a 49.5mm lug-to-lug and an 11mm thickness that, even with the NATO running between the caseback and the top of the wrist, still allows the case to appear and wear quite thin. The offset crown with the 4 isn't a new Bertucci placement, but we do like how it contrasts the matte black case with its matted silver finish, matching the NATO strap loops and hardware in the process. It's a push-pull unit and allows the case to maintain 100 meters of water resistance. An R-type mineral crystal sits over a classically designed field watch dial with 2 concentric rings of Arabic numerals, except for the 4, which sees a framed white date window and a large cyclops instead. A touch we really love here that definitely helps the date window stand out just a bit more than usual. At the top of the handstack is a bright red seconds with Bertucci's classic shield counterbalance, and the entire dial is awash with extremely bright, high-performance Swiss superluminous material that does a great job of holding its brightness well after exposure to the sun. Inside, Bertucci employs a Japanese quartz with an estimated 3-year battery life. A quartz movement, no shocker here for the sticker tag. And one of the best parts about Bertucci, in our opinion, is the follow-through. They've left no component unconsidered. Around $150, we've seen some pretty poor straps and bracelets, but Bertucci's extremely hard-wearing NATOs, like this number 354 vintage drab B-type nylon NATO, are some of the best price point aside. We love us a good reissue, and leave it to Casio to revive the 52QS14B with very minor changes, for an extremely true-to-form resurrection with the new A1100-1VT. Plus, they've kept the price under $150 for this version, as the most affordable of a trio reissued in black, gold, and silver. This is an extremely quirky late 70s design, and with so many other sub-$150 Casio reissues on the market, we honestly think the A1100 is a sleeper and deserves a good degree more attention. Although its visage is remarkably similar, the case now comes in a full stainless steel build, unlike the original composed of a resin core and a stainless steel coating. There are also just a few other changes like full metal buttons on the front face and a different quartz caliber inside. On the wrist, we're looking at 35mm in diameter with a 40mm lug-to-lug and a thin 9.1mm thickness. On paper, 35 is small, and so is 40 millimeters in length, but the actual wearing experience does feel slightly larger, and that's definitely due to the almost integrated style of the flat 7-link bracelet that almost extends that lug-to-lug over the wrist. A unique feature of the A1100 and the original 52QS14B are the buttons on the front face, Casio opting for this unique design consideration over the more traditional side buttons you'd typically find on any other watch, like the Casio A700 for example, to name just one, from Casio's own catalog. Each button is labeled with a fine central engraving into the stainless case itself, allowing the wearer to control a fairly standard feature set for a digital budget Casio, like a stopwatch, alarms, a calendar, and it even has an amber LED. As we praised a moment ago in the introduction, we're big fans of the bracelet. Not only does it have this stealthy, sleek, vintage vibe, but the brushed finish is highly attractive, extending the vertical brushing of the main case. The fit is also highly conforming, and the solid fold-over clasp comes with 3 micro-adjustments to hone in a fit. Our next budget watch pick comes from Japan as well, with Citizen making one of the best budget field watches backed by a no-fuss solar-powered quartz caliber with the highly affordable Citizen Garrison family. The 37mm case is standard and rugged, handsome and simple, uses a beautiful cadence of brushing and high polish, and employs a prominent knurled push-pull crown at the 3 and offers 100 meters of water resistance. The Garrison's bright white markers and 12-hour Arabic numerals are set against a deep, velvety black dial, which provides an insane amount of contrast, almost as good as what you'd see from German watchmaker Zinn. You'll find that field and pilot watches share much of the same ethos, and both have their origin in times of great conflict, but there's a few things to look for to tell them apart. While the Garrison's dial is highly visible thanks to the high contrast black and white scheme, it does not sport any secondary timing features that pilot watches often use. Now, as for the movement, here's where the Garrison Field Watch shines for its price, courtesy of Citizen's proprietary EcoDrive E101 caliber, that can power the watch's movement with any available light and isn't restricted solely to solar. Both natural and artificial light can pass through the dial, become converted into energy, and then stored in a cell for future use, which means it never needs a battery swap, and can provide 6 months of use in total darkness. On a sunny day, you can achieve max reserve with only 11 hours of sun exposure. On a cloudy day, it'll take about 40 hours, and with artificial light, expect your charge time to take up to 130 hours to achieve a full 6 months worth of power. However, you'll no doubt experience a combination of environments, so you can expect your maximum charge time to vary pretty widely. As we've always said, a great field watch usually builds in a great NATO strap. The Garrison in this case doesn't use the traditional slip-through variant, but it does build in a very close stitched fabric strap with a faux leather backing and beefy stainless steel buckle hardware to match the main case. Paying tribute to its American heritage dating back to 1854 as the Waterbury Clock Company, originally founded in Connecticut, the Timex Waterbury Traditional Day Date is our next budget watch pick under $150. That is easily one of the most handsome and underrated everyday watches in the current Timex catalog. Timex has not shied away from reissuing a whole slew of back catalog references as straight-up reissues or reinterpretations, but this particular Waterbury, nestled within the larger Waterbury family, stands apart as a tangibly modern creation, that is, with a few heritage Easter eggs. The proportions will suit just about everyone at 39mm in diameter with a 46mm lug-to-lug and an 11.5mm thickness. The stainless steel case here is our favorite part, as it's impeccably finished. Just take a look at the mix of brushing and high polish on the sides of the case and around the fixed bezel in particular. Props to Timex for the attention to detail here. At first, we couldn't quite articulate just why we love the case so much, finish aside, but we determined that it shares quite a few similarities to the famed Oyster case, almost looking like something from Tudor without looking at the dial. Now, speaking of, under a mineral crystal, the dial is where Timex added those Easter eggs we mentioned earlier. From the seconds counterbalance to the 7's Arabic numeral to the dial text above the 6 itself, all nods to the year Timex began in 1854 as the Waterbury Clock Company. Anecdotally, Timex wouldn't become Timex until the 1940s after an acquisition. We also love the deep-set dial and brushed flange, the raised Arabic numerals and markers, and the sunken, unframed date window, all elements that aid in giving the dial just the right degree of interest by way of depth. The baton-adjacent pencil handset is inset with plenty of lume, as are the markers and the numerals themselves. And the caliber here is nothing extremely special. It's an M279, a quartz-powered movement with that day date at the 3, and it'll offer up the grab-and-go convenience a budget watch certainly should. We also have to talk about the 20mm leather band, as Timex crushes it yet again here, with a black finish on the exterior, matching black stitched contrast by the lugs, a smooth, comfortable lining on the interior, and quick-release spring bars for a toolless swap experience. We are going to end our guide in the late 1980s, well, inspired by the 1980s that is, we should say, with the Timex Reissue LCA, short for Liquid Crystal Analog, that sees this wonderfully quirky watch house a digital display with moving analog hands complete with a ticking seconds, we say in quotes. For anyone unfamiliar with the Q family, the recent Q Timex revivals are modern quartz reeditions that celebrate Timex's prowess and ingenuity during the quartz crisis that saw them produce many iconic watches with these battery-powered calibers. One of our favorites, hovering just over $150, is this LCA reissue. They are all unique, but this is one of the only fully digital analog reissues in the Q family. And we maintain it rivals Casio's similar affordable gold-toned retro watches that are now also extremely popular. On the wrist, 32.5mm in diameter, 40mm lug-to-lug, and 9mm thick. The reissue LCA is even more integrated than the Casio A1100 we looked at earlier, with a flat integrated case shape instead of traditional lugs, and a single-row flat-link bracelet that transitions and attaches seamlessly into the backside of the case with traditional spring bars. You have 4 buttons, 2 on each side for control, which are finished in a high polish like the sides of the case itself, contrasting the straight vertical brushing on the top of the case and the bracelet as well. Under mineral glass with its default time-telling mode activated, you're provided with both a digital readout with running seconds in the bottom right, and analog hands that also come with a ticking, we say in quotes, digital seconds hand in the upper left. In the negative space in the upper right, a mode selector letting you choose between dual time, an alarm, a timer, and a stopwatch. Inside is a Chinese-made quartz movement, not surprising for the price and the brand, Timex relying on a hefty amount of Chinese components and labor for their most affordably priced watches. This is obviously also how Timex is able to price these reissues as they have. And speaking of, so is the gold-toned stainless steel bracelet with its on-the-fly adjustable clasp. It's getting more and more difficult to find highly affordable watches, especially ones under $150, which is what most not fully immersed in the watch space would actually call affordable, that is. So we hope you saw something that at least piqued your interest, but if not, we always love to hear your personal favorites, so feel free to drop us a line below. These are also great brands in general to continue your search, as these are not the only affordable watches they offer, and finding one that really resonates with you is half the fun anyway. And as always, make sure to head over to our editorial guide as well for even more great coverage.